Et maintenant, on a l'Américain de l'équipe, Davila, David Davila, yes, qui est vraiment la tête d'un Américain, je trouve. Et qui est, en plus, il travaille dans la neuroscience, qui fait très américain. Il a un cerveau en plastique à la main, qui fait très américain aussi. Et il a une petite contradiction dans le titre, Speaking Silently. Et au début, je croyais que c'était une petite exposé sur le mime. Mais non. Donc, bon, je vous laisse le plateau.
Well, hi everybody. My name is David, and the thing that you should know about me and every other scientist, unless you already know one or are, heaven forbid, married to one, is that we can be a little bit weird. And so, yeah, we'll get excited about meeting a seemingly normal middle-aged man whose response to everything is, oh, tono, 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 tono. Tono Tono guy sounds silly, but he's a real person, and he's on YouTube, and you should look him up. But he's also a really interesting case study in how language functions in the brain. But special cases like him don't come along very often. And so, because language is really difficult to execute because of the tiny movements of our tongue, or because of the very specific breathing patterns that we need to speak, the question becomes, how can we study language separately from the actual act of speaking? Well, when we usually think about language, we typically think of spoken language like English or French or Chinese, but studies in sign language actually give us really fascinating results in how language functions in the brain, sparse though these studies may be. In fact, with studies on sign language, we can avoid all the complex features of language. On the other hand, Tono Tono guy has these complex features. He has specific mouth movements and vocal emotions, but he still lacks language. Tono Tono guy actually has damage to a specific part of the brain called Broca's area, and it's known to be involved in producing speech. When people have damage to this area of the brain, they seem like they know exactly what they want to say, but they just can't get it out. It's very bad for FameLab speakers, actually. But the really interesting part is that a recent study has found that even though we already know this area activates when you or I speak, the same area is activated when sign language speakers make signs. That is to say, as far as your brain is concerned, sign language and spoken language are the exact same thing. They just require a different set of muscles to express it. Because of this, therapists that specialize in autism have actually started teaching autistic children how to sign as part of language therapy. And in fact, they find that when children with autism are taught sign language alongside English, they actually learn English faster than if they were only taught English. With all this in mind, I have to wonder, why do we call it sign language? It helps us communicate just like every other language, and the brain treats it the same as every other language. Maybe it's time to shift our mindset of sign language by simply calling it. Thank you.
Very interesting. I cannot, ask you a question with the sign language. I'm sorry for that, but it's really very, very exciting. It was the only area in the brain that was involved in sign versus. I mean, can't you distinguish, brain areas that are more specific to sign and language?
Indeed, you can. So the Broca's area is only one of two major areas of the brain that are involved with sign language. But if we're looking specifically at Broca's area, there's one part of it that was found to be really closely paralleled with spoken language, but another part of it that was much less activated when sign language was used than with spoken language. And this was thought to be actually connecting the language center of the brain to the motor function that is involved with the mouth and the tongue and the jaw. And so since this area is less activated, it makes sense that it is connected to these parts.
So common areas are as important as different areas.
Yes, exactly, exactly.
Was it difficult to teach autistic children sign language or this language?
Yeah, thank you. It's about as difficult as it is to teach them regular language. The thing is, not only do they have to teach them that there is an abstraction of this idea matches this movement, whether it be mouth or hands, but that part of the brain actually in autistic children needs to be strengthened and reinforced. So yeah, it is difficult. But in that way, you can actually show them what they need to do. With making tongue, with the shape of your tongue and the shape of your mouth, it's much more difficult to say like, this is what you do to make this sound. So that's another pathway that they've tried to do that with.